confidence is not a feeling, it's a decision. And
Mm,
so when you have a space to enter or a phone call to take or whatever, or pitch you need to make, it's up to us to make the decision that this is my time to show up. I don't feel, I feel. It's like this is for us to take control of those feelings and make the executive decision that I'm going to own my time in this space.
Hey, I'm Tine, your pivot and pay strategist. I help Black women double their income by leveraging their existing skills. I am all about getting Black women paid, whether you're an employee or a business owner. And you're listening to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. Let's go. Hello and welcome to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. I'm your host, Tine, international speaker, award-winning author, founder and CEO of Getting Black Women Paid, and your Audacity coach. We have a guest episode today where we are talking all about leadership. And let me tell you, this conversation had so many gems. There were times where I asked our guest to repeat herself. It was that one more time for the people in the back moment. I took away some great mindset shifts from this. So I'm so excited for this conversation. Before we get into it, I'd love to introduce you to our guest. Julia C. Rock is a keynote speaker, leadership consultant, and certified executive coach dedicated to transforming workplace dynamics and helping leaders create environments where all their employees can thrive. Julia has successfully managed and scaled global teams, navigating and overcoming challenges like burnout, disengagement, and inequality. Her personal journey led her to the TEDx stage and has empowered her to coach and mentor over 1,000 professionals and leaders in building meaningful and fulfilling careers. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. Well, Julia, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh man, Tina, thank you so much for having me. I am just excited to be here because I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this interview. So I'm excited for us to hop in today.
Yes, you and me both. So it's finally happening. Let's just dig right in. So I always like to start with my guests with a bit of an origin story. I'm wondering how you came to be doing the work that you do.
Man, I will try my best to keep this as brief as possible. As I mentioned earlier, that I'm a chatty patty. Uh, thinking about how I got into this work, it really started when I was in college. So I was spending a lot of time in our business school's kind of career services center, and I was soaking up everything I could from that center, and then helping my friends with their resumes and that kind of thing. And so that went on for about, even after I graduated, I did the work for free for 7 years. And so then when I finally I graduated from grad school and I had started recruiting in my second career, that's when I started to notice kind of the difference between how people of color, specifically Black people, were performing at some of the recruiting events and career fairs I was going to, and then some of our non-Black counterparts. And I realized, I'm like, well, this is not really an intellect issue or skill issue. It seems like there's something else that's at play here. And at the same time, a good friend of mine, I coached him to his first six-figure job, and he said, I appreciate the free help, but I really think you should start to charge for this. And so, just seeing those two things kind of happening at the same time, I said, this is the time for me to start my business. And it started with resumes and interview help and so forth. And over time, it really morphed into coaching and supporting people throughout their career journey, not just helping them to land the job. Because what I also found is once people got their job, they didn't know what to do to keep it or to get promoted or what have you. And so it's like, okay, we need to expand the service offering. And the beauty of what I was doing was I was building it alongside my corporate career. So,
Mm.
as I went through leadership and was scaling teams and so forth, there were practical things, not just, the certification studies and all the other things that I would do. It's practical things I was seeing on the ground that I was able to work with my clients on. And then as I worked with clients across different industries, different levels of management, I was able to see more practical insights. And so fast forward to today where I've been able to focus on leaders. That's from taking 20 years of coaching people and also building my own career. So I tell people, like, I don't have an HR background, but what I do have is experience doing the real thing.
Right, right. This is my dad would say, "This is not they say, this is I saw," right?
Right.
You were
Exactly.
you were
Exactly.
coming from your direct experience. I love how you describe the evolution of your business so organically, right? As you were progressing in your own career and as you were noticing different things, then you were expanding your services. And I do want to highlight one thing, which is so many of us, when we're starting businesses, realize we've been doing the thing for free for quite a while. And I want to just stress that there's no shame in that, right? That's how we realize I'm good at this thing that I've been doing on the side. It had at the time it was just, oh, a favor for this person, or I noticed this thing, and now it's, oh, wait
Mhm.
a minute, I could get paid to do this. So I love that you kind of talk about that stage of things as well, and how that morphed into, actually, let me start a business with this.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times people go from, "I woke up and now I have a business and I've got clients." It's like, "Well, what's the in between? How did we get here?" Right? And
Exactly.
so, I was slinging resumes for free, and then the first resume I charged for, I think it was $35, and then my first coaching session was 75 bucks. So I
Hmm.
tell people you start somewhere, you build
Yeah,
and you grow from there, and there's no shame in that at all.
absolutely. And today's price is not tomorrow's price, and so you can
Absolutely
get
not.
started, and then you can raise those rates as needed. So
That's
I
right.
love that you talk us through that journey, because you're right. Nobody just wakes up and has a thriving business. So we
Right.
need to know what is that in between phase? What does that look like?
That's right.
Um, I want to talk about how you help leaders specifically. And you have this phrase, leadership isn't complicated, it's just hard. And I love it, but I want to know, what do you mean by that? And why do you think so many leaders overcomplicate things?
Yeah, so I'm gonna just keep it real here. Part of why I think leaders struggle with leadership overall is because, one, it requires you to do real work. And what we have done, in a lot of organizations and with a lot of these programs is that we have overcomplicated the concepts around leadership. There's an assessment, there's a framework, there's a methodology, there's a certification, there's all of these things. And so people get put through the paces to try to learn all of this. And so when you do the course or you go to the training, now it's like, oh, I've done the work. Meanwhile, you've never actually done anything with your people, right? You've never done anything with your people. You've never done any real reflection. You've never gotten any real feedback. It's like, I'm just doing the stuff and going through the motions. And so, people want to skip the actual work to do the complex, complicated frameworks and stuff behind the scenes to say that they're doing something. I use this analogy. When we think about losing weight, overall, it's about two things. It's typically, increasing your exercise, and it's about reducing your calorie intake. Now there's
Sure.
some nuance and personal and genetics and so forth, but at a high level, that's what it takes to lose weight. Is that complicated? No, you kind of know what you have to do, but it is hard because it requires you to grow, it requires you to change. And so I apply that to leadership as well. We know technically what we need to do, but what it is requiring of us, it's hard. And so if we can just stay in this space where we're being performative and we're going to all the trainings and checking the boxes on our CBTs, then it's like, well, technically I'm doing the thing without actually doing the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be so tempting to get really caught up in the frameworks and the buzzwords, and this is the newest thing I should be doing. But from an employee's perspective, they're just looking for, clarity and purpose. And I'm wondering
Yes.
if you can talk to us about, like what does it look like to get kind of back to the basics of leadership, and what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is for the leaders who may be listening, I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. Your employees do not care about your personality type. They don't give a damn about your MBTI and your Gallup Clifton strengths, guys. They don't care. They want to make sure that they're doing work that matters and that you will have their back when it counts, and you're not
Mhm,
going to stand in their way when they want to get things done. That's really it. And so for when it comes to getting back to the basics, I actually developed some concepts around that. It's called the 5 C's of uncomplicated leadership. The first is clarity, right? So clarity is a word that we all can understand, and the idea is that your people need clarity from you. So if you have to over communicate, simplify the message, remove the fog and the complexity, just get clear. Then the
mhm.
next one is consistency. That's another issue with some of the methodology changes, is because every week it's a new thing. There's a new buzzword, there's a new framework, and so your employees are like, wait, wasn't this the thing you were doing the last time, that leadership action plan? This a new action plan? And so now you're not showing up in a consistent way, and that's
Mhm.
causing some confusion on the team. The third one is connection. A lot of times employees, they want to have some level of engagement with their bosses, and just have an open door at least. And so that they feel like they're not a number, but they're being treated as a human being. And so connection is critically important. The fourth one is courage. A lot of people, they want to preserve themselves in their job. They don't want to do the hard thing, say the hard thing, because they're worried about how they look. And so
Yeah.
they don't have the courage it takes, or willing to demonstrate the courage that it takes. And then the last one is celebration. And so celebration in making sure that you're recognizing people for the work that they're doing or the effort that they're making. Because not everybody's going to be a rock star. We can't have rock stars everywhere. You're going to have just some folks who are solid, and they need to be celebrated as well. So, those 5 things, you notice I didn't use any complicated language. I didn't use any sort of consultant messaging to try to get a sale. These are 5 key things that people can take with them and internalize and get to work on right now, even without the help of a coach or a consultant.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so can you remind us quickly what the 5 C's are? We had clarity,
Clarity,
consistency.
consistency, connection, courage, and celebration.
Mm, that's it. Oh,
That's it.
that's
That's
incredible.
it.
Right, it doesn't have to be complicated, yes. And, I'm thinking specifically when you mentioned courage,
Mhm.
um, I thought about a couple of different things. One is sort of, having those hard conversations, really saying the thing regardless of, how you're gonna be perceived. But then I also was thinking about, um, I've written the book on imposter syndrome. I know all about how that can creep in, especially in leadership roles.
That's right.
And so it's not necessarily about your competence, but your confidence
Mhm.
that can hold so many of us back. And so I'm wondering if you can speak to, how women, especially Black women, can start showing up differently in their confidence.
Yeah, so it starts with the willingness to, well, I'll even take it a step before that. We as Black women need to realize that confidence is not a feeling, it's a decision. And
Mm,
so when you have a space to enter or a phone call to take or whatever, or pitch you need to make, it's up to us to make the decision that this is my time to show up. I don't feel, I feel. It's like this is for us to take control of those feelings and make the executive decision that I'm going to own my time in this space. And so that's the first thing. And the second thing is looking around and realizing that everyone else is taking up space, knocking my water over. Everyone around us is taking up space. Why do we think that we shouldn't do the same? And often it's that, well, how are we going to be perceived? Or
mhm,
what is someone going to say? And the truth is, When you don't say anything, they have something to say. So you might as well say something, right? Because if you don't say something, oh, this person is just they're just coming to get a paycheck, they're not adding any value, right? Or they're just, there's some other rhetoric that's around. So why not, speak up and take up the space? And the last thing I'll say about that is, you know, the lack of confidence is often tied to the fear, and we have to put it in our minds that the success that we want is more important to us than the fears that are blocking us. If we take a second and think about, how important are my dreams to me? How important is it for me to take care of my family, for me to launch my business, for me to hit that goal? If that's truly important to you, are you willing to let fear stop you from getting that?
Mm,
And that's how I felt about even leaving corporate. Was I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, what if the business doesn't work or what have you?" And I said, "But the success to me is being able to spend time with my 99-year-old grandmother and my mid-70s parents in Barbados. That's success to me. And am I willing to stay in this job and risk not being able to reach that success where I can spend time with my grandmother and my parents?" The answer to that is no. So you got to just hop out the window and realize that your success means more and will achieve more for you than letting the fears that the you know letting the fear block you.
oh my goodness. The thing I know I'm going to take from this conversation is that courage is not a feeling, it's a decision. Come on, that had me. I've been sharing this quote all year. It's faking courage and real courage are the same thing, right? It's
Mm,
just doing the thing anyway, even if you're afraid. But when you frame it as a decision,
mhm.
that really helps us then understand that, right? If you're weighing, the impact of your success versus the importance of your fears, it becomes so much easier to make that decision
Yep,
that this is worth it. Oh, that's
absolutely.
that's incredible. That
And
was a
and if
mindset
I
shift for me, so I just need a minute.
Oh, no, I'm so glad, and if I can add one more thing, oftentimes we forget how much we've done before we got here, right? And I'll be honest, that's the same thing that I put this on Threads the other day, is that sometimes I get afraid as an entrepreneur, like, "Oh, do I reach out to this person?" And then you have that moment where you shake yourself back. I'm like, the last job I had in corporate, I was responsible for $23 billion in operating expenses. Like, I've been in big rooms, I've made
Yeah,
big decisions, like, if the decision was less than $50 million, it wasn't even something that I really took under consideration. And so it's that moment of shaking myself back to reality and remembering who I am. And so for the ladies listening, that's sometimes we just have to shake ourselves back and realize how much we've done. So the
yeah.
fear we have is like, what is that even based on? We've done hard things before. We've taken up space before. We've overcome obstacles before. What's different about whatever we're facing right now?
Absolutely. And, for someone who's listening, who's maybe they're feeling stalled in their career or they're feeling stuck where they are.
Mhm.
They're in a holding pattern of some sort. I'm wondering, what's the first step to getting unstuck in our careers?
The first step is finding clarity. All the work that I do with clients, executive, all the way down, that it starts with clarity. The reason why we're stuck is we're either unclear about what we want to do or should be doing, or we're unclear about who we are. And
Mm,
so taking that time, because if you're feeling stuck in your career, that means that there's some place that you want to go and you can't get there because you're stuck in place. But the question is, have you defined where it is that you want to go? Because if you define where you want to go, I mean, that's how GPS works, right? The GPS can't help you if you've only got a starting location, right? You need the ending destination as well. So starting there and saying, okay, what is my destination? And often we feel like, well, I don't know where I want to go. I don't know. I'm unclear. Then the question is, then who are you? Because when you reflect on who you are and the values that you have and what's important to you, it then becomes easier for you to find a destination because you know the things that you can't do or you won't do because they don't align with who you are and your values. And
Mhm.
so it's either that you're unclear about where you want to go or you're unclear about who you are. And if you spend the time there, it becomes a lot easier because then you can actually build a roadmap to get unstuck and get to that destination.
Hmm. That's fantastic. So we want to check in, we want to get clarity on where you want to go and who you are.
That's right.
That's those are the things, right? Once you have that, then you know what you're trying to do. I think on the other side of things, we can have that we're in a rut, we're kind of stuck. On the other side of that coin is burnout, right?
Yes.
And burnout is sometimes a workload problem, but it's never just a workload problem,
That's right.
right? You've talked about how it's also a leadership problem. And so I'm wondering, if you can break that down for us and help us understand what it looks like. Like, what are the signs that a team is burning out in plain sight?
Yes, so, because often we just hear about, oh, like, oh, my plate is full. But if you think about the leadership aspect of that, the leader is the person who's deciding on who gets what work. They're
Yes.
deciding on what work needs to be done in the first place. They're the person who's deciding on the vision that for the organization. And so if they don't even have a vision, that's a problem because then the employees themselves have no idea what they're working towards and they have no idea why
Yeah.
their work matters, which drives burnout. Because if you're just showing up every day making the widgets and you have no idea where your work is going or why it matters, you don't feel connected and you feel like, man, I'm just, what am I doing this for besides a
Mhm.
paycheck? You can weave baskets and get a paycheck, right? So the leader has to have some vision. And then in terms of just defining what work we need to do, a lot of leaders struggle with what I call pass along syndrome. Pass along syndrome is, they get a request or an idea from the folks above them. And instead of them vetting that request and asking, hey, why do we need this? What question does this answer? How quickly do you need this? Because my team's already stretched. Instead of doing any of that pre work, they
Yeah.
just take the work and pass it along to the team. And the team's like, what the heck? We're busy. And so that then drives the workload.
Yeah.
And so now then you have to put the work on the right people. But what happens? They burden down the top performers, right? Because they feel like, okay, these are the ones who are the strongest, so I'm going to keep dumping work on their plates. And then the strong performers are like, well, I don't want to be seen as a flake or that I can't get it done, so I'm going to continue to take the work. And what else does that drive? Burnout. And
Yeah.
so and I want to say this on the flip side for the employees that are listening. Part of why we're burning out, and I have to say this, is we're in jobs that we know we should have left a long time ago.
Can you
Whether
say that
it's
one more time?
we are in jobs that we know that we should have left a long time ago. It doesn't align with our values anymore. It doesn't even align with the work we enjoy anymore.
Yeah.
When I started out in my career, I loved spreadsheets and finance and being in the nitty-gritty. But as I progressed, I wanted more strategic work, wanted more leadership work. So if I had stayed in an analyst role, I would have burned clean out early
Yeah.
because of the fact that I'm like, this is not what I want to do anymore. But many of us are staying in these jobs because we got the degree in this field, or it's safe, or it's whatever. And then we're wondering why we feel out of body, out of alignment,
Yeah.
every day we go to work. And so I just wanted to drop that nugget, that many of us are staying in places that we know we should have left. And we're wondering why we don't feel good and why we're burning out.
Mm, absolutely. And as soon as you said it, I knew you had to say it again, right? Because so many of us are in that position where we've been in the role far longer than we should, and it is past time to move on.
That's right.
Um, I'm wondering, if you could go back and talk to, Julia in her very first leadership role,
Yeah.
what would you tell her about what it really takes to lead?
Man, it takes more courage and resilience than you can even imagine.
Mm,
You have to be willing to go to the mat for your people and sacrifice yourself. I have lost opportunities because I've prioritized my people and their well-being over the personal widgets that I was asked to make. And, so when presented with, the facts, my bosses said, "Well, you should have been focusing on these widgets over here." And like, well, that it is what it is. I had high turnover at the time. I inherited a team that had high turnover. And so I prioritize keeping butts in seats, creating a
yeah.
better work experience for them. But that was at the expense of my own, widgets. And, if I had it to do all over again, I would do the exact same thing. And
Mm,
so so if I could talk to younger Julie, it's like whatever courage you think you might need, whatever resilience you think you might need, don't even triple it. That you need to 10x that.
mm,
Because also, especially being a black woman, and I worked in oil and gas, I worked in finance, and so and then I moved to a different country, all places that weren't filled with people that look like me. And you have to be ready for what may come, the opposition that comes with that. And part of having courage is also having the courage to tell others you need help. I think about moments where I've been at my breaking point and I've been able to talk to a mentor or talk to a friend, a peer who's in a similar situation. And sometimes you just got to hold hands with each other to just try to navigate the tough space that you're in. And so that takes courage as well, because as black women, especially, we want to, we got the team on our back. We're doing the things, right? But it takes the courage to say, I ain't got it. I am not superwoman. I am stressed. I'm burning out. I'm sad, whatever it might be. Having the courage to share that burden with someone else so you don't have to carry the weight alone.
absolutely. And you mentioned before we got onto the recording, you mentioned that you have a quick reference guide for our listeners. I'm wondering, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm so excited. So we talked earlier about the five C's of uncomplicated leadership, and so what this quick reference guide does, it breaks down the five C's, and then it asks you questions, or for you to ask yourself, or list questions that you can ask yourself in each of those to really assess where you are with each of those, because it may be that one you're stronger in, like maybe you're really good at providing clarity but you don't celebrate enough, or something like that. So it gives you a chance to ask yourself the tough questions, and then you can determine, okay, well, where do I want to go from here? And the reason why I call it a quick reference guide is because when you're having those moments of, I don't know what's happening on my team, I don't know what's happening with the energy, I don't know what's happening with the morale, you can always pull that out and say, where am I with these five C's? Have I been
Mm,
celebrating the team enough? Have I been nurturing the connections? Do they feel like they can come and talk to me? Have I been consistent in how I show up in my behaviors, my words, and my actions? And so you can test yourself on those things, because often we want to put the onus on the employees. Oh, they don't want to work. Oh, they're this. Oh, they're that. But when it comes to a team, it starts with the leader. And so it's
mm.
something easy and uncomplicated that you can take a look at and use it as a reference, and kind of check yourself before going to the team.
That is so great, and I love that it's not a one and done personality quiz or whatever it is. It's
Right.
a reference to use at any time to say, where am I at right now on the
Mhm.
five C's? That is so awesome. So we are going to have the link to that quick reference guide in the show notes. And for the listeners who are just like, I got to get more of Julia. I need I need more. How can folks reach you?
Yes, so LinkedIn is my favorite platform. So my name is Julia Dash Rock on there. And so you can come and find me. Would love to connect. And then you can also connect with me on Instagram. I'm at the Julia Rock there, as well as Threads. So that's a place that I also frequent. And then if you want to just drop me a line, you can either come to the website rockcareer.com or email julia@rockcareer.com.
Beautiful. And you have a Substack as well, is that right?
Yes.
Tell us
Yes.
why.
So I am working on, one, I'm writing a book that will be released in May 2026, but I started the Substack to really be a place where I can talk more about the five C's. And so I publish on Substack daily. So it's leaduncomplicated.substack.com. And so every day there's a story that I'm telling about my leadership experience or that of my clients, and tying it back to concepts that leaders can take with them. There's always like a final word at the end, so that if you got lost somewhere else, you can always kind of reset at the end and take the nugget from that. So I would love for folks to check that out too.
That is perfect. Well, Julia, thank you so much. I have been so excited for this conversation, and it did not disappoint. So I appreciate you joining us to share your wisdom around leadership, and I just love the work that you do, and um, how you noticed that things were looking different for us than for others, and you jumped in to say, well, how can I help? What can I do? So I appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, my mindset is, if we're not going to do it for us, who's going to do it? Right. So we've got to step in and help. So thank you for sharing your platform with me today. It was such a privilege to be here and such a fun conversation. Thank you so much, Tine. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you to all of you for listening, and we will see you in the next one.
Hey, thanks for watching the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure you like and subscribe. And remember to hit the notification bell so you can catch more episodes like this one. And join the conversation by leaving a comment below. Be sure to share this channel with the incredible Black women in your life so we can continue getting Black women paid. All right, we'll see you in the next one.